come from University of Beira interior, which is in a very similar place to Carbondale, except that it's more filled with rocky mountains around. So I'll be presenting something about media, technology, digital language, digital culture. I'll be just making a short introduction on my little path on the market and the things that I've done so far. And I can start with this image that I picked for you. It's not about Homo sapiens, the way you usually mention it. It's about sapiens in the sense of cyber worlds, you know. So the thing is that today, if we follow Marshall McLuhan's idea that media are sort of extension of the human body, we kind of have a trouble in knowing where does the human part end and technology begin. From prosthetics, technology, film, everything around us is becoming too much technological. We can see that even in the behavior of the millennial market, advertising. Even when we don't notice, whatever they're showing to us is at least a little bit technical, or it's so good, so good, so good that you face the uncanny valley. It's like, it's too real, it's too perfect. So, oh, that image you saw on TV, after all, that was CGI. So we are on that period where images sort of trick us so well that reality becomes much more artificial than actually what we see on the media. So I started with a graduation on Communication and Culture Sciences in Lisbon, 1994 to 1999. By that year, The Matrix was coming up by the Wachowski brothers, and then I was making some works as a journalist, Practical Internet Magazine, Computer World, PC World. There were Portuguese versions of the originals, and then I started to write something about cyberculture, and I was completely delighted with authors such as William Gibson and Stevenson and Sherry Turkle and Howard Rangel and so on. So I loved those kind of authors. In fact, we had some conversations with Professor Jay Needham about that. And about that time, after 1999, everything that was supposed to be a sort of a virtual community, like a small part of society, the digerati, the elite, a small group, suddenly everything became digital. Web 1.0 faced the dot-com bubble, and after 9/11, everything got a little bit more controlled. Then you started to see things about surveillance culture, social media came up, and it's not the same world anymore, because now we have mobile phones that are as smart and as fast as one of those satellites they send up there. So what's the issue? Everything we do now has to do with media and control. And the war we are facing here, it's a different war. It's like we are at war against ignorance. The only way to prosper in the next future, it's about production of content. It's about the new realm of creative industries. So we need to produce something more, and especially to fight back that voluntary ignorance, that voluntary illiteracy. But there's in one point specific, everybody's becoming fully understanding about that. It's about media. Everybody has media. There's this futuristic author called Glenn Yemstra, I think that's his name. He's in futurist.com, and he's saying something like, in near future, we're going to need a demediatizer, because everybody is Facebooked, online, with smartphone, with TiVo, with a car, with GPS, everything is connected. And now we're moving to this 3.0 version of the internet. So voice interfaces, cloud computing, in cloud computing, everything will be extremely connected. So we can start with a quote from that motion picture of Joseph Kaczynski, the reboot of the science fiction of 1982, Tron, which was made again in 2010, where Jeff Bridges says, welcome to the grid. And then he says something like, I started to picture how it would like the world of the computer. Would the roads be like circuits? Would the vehicles be like electrons? And then he says, I wonder how it would like. And then one day I got in. And the question is that we're already in, you see. The digital was just reassembling something huge we don't notice. Again, we follow McLuhan's idea, which is graphically represented here in a Photoshop image, is that we are so inside a transformation we don't see it. And this transformation is not about one medium, not a constellation of mediums, it's a massive media environment. It's not like speaking about industry, and then there's the electronics phase. It's something bigger. We're making something on a civilization keystone. There's a landmark. This is my new book. It just got published very recently. It's called PostWeb and the Continuous Geography of Digital Media. I started to write it in 2008. By the time a lot of artists were showing in Singapore stuff related to geomedia, social media, voice interfaces. So I got interested in the way we're thinking on not the Web 2.0, but what's coming next. And what's coming next is that some years from now, we'll be very surprised if we see something that, oh, we have unsmart media. Because everything is smart. We have smart tables, Microsoft smart screens, everything is touchable. It's like when you see something that is completely non-electronic, it would look like there's something wrong with it. Like we have a knife that only cuts, that's odd. A phone only to make phone calls, that will be odd. So we are on that ring. So I believe we are in a post-web situation, and we're facing something that Gibson already said in 1997 or 2002. In a documentary called No Maps for These Territories. And he said something on that documentary that is about we live in a post-geographic situation because the internet is post-geographic. And we're already seeing that through economy. The first two things that got in cyberspace, besides the military stuff and issues, were basically e-money, which ended up on a financial crisis, and electronic music. And why? Money had to be wired. Good. Why the music? Because the music is something that whenever a viewer or a listener has to be in some place paying attention to that content, it doesn't have to be in the specific place because music surrounds us. So we have a sound version of that system in Wi-Fi technology. Wherever we go, we have internet. We don't have to be in front of something. But as Lev Manovich says, the medium that is considered to be the best medium of the 20th century is cinema, because it's the format that has been being transferred to video games, advertising, teasers, trailers, everything. It follows the aesthetics of filmmaking. So I believe that very soon this continuous geography, we won't even notice its artificiality. It began a little bit on Second Life. It will evolve into something else. And online gaming is evolving very fast, especially with the new endeavors on PlayStation 4 and the upcoming Xbox. Peter Lunenfeld, on a very interesting book where he speaks about the computer as a cultural machine, he says that television is defined by downloading. 30 years ago, I usually saw people at home in groups speaking, commenting, but seeing the same content on TV. I don't see that anymore. Cable providers are basically selling the idea that anyone can see each content on each room. So McLuhan was right. Fragmentary society. The mass media separated people. You read one book, each person reads one book. We're all on movies, on a movie theater, but each person has one experience on its own. But when we speak of video games, it's changing because we are playing a lot of things at the same time. And more recently, on a study conducted by BBDO, the advertising agency, and Microsoft Advertising, they're mentioning the idea of we being searchers, not browsers, explorers, navigators, we're the searchers. And it sort of started as the TV show made by Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman, and J.J. Abrams got debut on TV, and it began something new. We have two sorts of TV shows. The ones that we just want to see one episode and that's it, and then we go to bed and forget about it. And then we have those that we can see 100 of episodes at once because they're highly addictive. And Lost made something new. It's a system. Everything there connects with older things and new things of other cultures. That's something that puts Lost TV show as the same level as new media. It's a puzzle. What the new generations really like is to assemble the puzzle. So someone forgot something, then another person really connected it with Tom Sawyer. Another one connects things with Shakespeare. Then we found the boat that has to do with pirates. And there's lots of content that we find connection. So we are becoming the searchers. We see this image of like a classroom, and it's a play about the iconics of the 80s video games, like Space Invaders, like one person teaching everybody to do one thing. It looks a little bit like a fitness class, but it's not that far. We have to create something. So these new industries, they won't survive if we're speaking about media industry specifically, but they won't survive if they don't produce something new systematically. Like we need to produce something new. I'm going to quote a very famous actor, Rutger Hauer, the one that plays the Nexus 6 android on Blade Runner, and he said something on a very recent documentary about Blade Runner, and he said, what do you want me to do? What's about science fiction, and you see it on Blade Runner, is basically this. Old is the new. We already have that in fashion. That's why when you look at the iPod it's awesome, but it's an hard drive or a solid-state drive with headphones. If you look at a computer, it was already on the research at Palo Alto in the Sharks Park. If you look at everything that we are doing, it's always a newer version of everything that was invented a little bit before. A problem we have with the new generations is that they're buying just narratives. They don't know the little things that were invented just before. I once proposed my department to teach something called History of New Media, because there is so much new media that at the same time they're new, but they're already dead, so because we are using and consuming other stuff. So that we have to make it a flow. There's a history because there's too much. Science fiction author Bruce Sterling also has a webpage called the Dead Media Project, and there he speaks about stuff that I've never seen. But the question here is that we're buying connections between things, not things, which means that when I see Lost, I'm buying literature, the video game called Lost via Domus. I'm buying also the other movies that J.J. Abrams directed, and basically I could also make a link with Super 8 and Close Encounters of the Third Kind from Spielberg, and Transformers and NASA, military messages. It's a constellation. So what changed? We do not follow a straight line in terms of content consumption. We like to, each one of us, have its own version. Cinema is no more a mass medium, it's a niche medium. It's happening all over Europe. It's like, it's not becoming very affordable. The 3D projections are awesome, but the act of going to the movies is changed because of everything is now available online on Netflix or any other servers. And the question is that we are beginning to feel much more attracted by the way the platforms worked than we are being attracted to the contents, and the future is about the contents. One thing that I learned when I was a journalist, and I was for a small amount of time director of a video game magazine called Multi-Console magazine. And then I worked also in one about internet and computers. But most of the things where I was working as a journalist were about either entertainment or IT technology news. And in a little amount of time, lots of things that were supposed to be trendy or sophisticated, they're completely outdated. But one thing, and again, we go back to the image of the first slide of McLuhan, humans having technology, media, that becomes extension of man. McLuhan said that in Understanding Media. He said that The thing about touch is that touch has to do with haptic. And these technologies we are seeing now, they're about haptics. They're haptic technology. And McLuhan also says that about sculpture. So we are basically getting away from the flat image of the screen and onto images where we need to understand volumes. We see that with blind people. Sculpture for blind people are different, and the experience got to be much different than we have to a flat image because we can see. So we are on a new transition here. It can be from the high-tech to the high-touch. And what authors are saying is that either everything is either an image, like this one, not in a photographic or a graphic form, or in this sense as a design form. We are facing images that are what an author called Willem Flusser, which is an amazing author, he says that images are metacodes for texts. And that's the key point about Lost and all the new things that are being released. We're not consuming images, we're consuming texts. They're over camouflaged, overlaid with stuff, but they're text. So we can say also the opposite. A trick to make a good image is to make a good meta-text. If you make a good meta-text, you can make a meta-image. So if you translate this to advertising, TV, subliminal message, it's all about it, about codes. How do we translate that thing? Top brands. We got mesmerized by the way we resell things we already knew. It's about the new way of showing, even if the product was not exactly that groundbreaking, but the way of reselling that to the younger crowds, that's the issue. And because we have one advantage, the younger crowds, they have no memory whatsoever what happened in the 3 or 4 decades ago, because there wasn't much things being released, and now there are a lot of stuff being released, but things were detached from a lifestyle the way they are now. Because now you gotta have a package. It's like you see a couple of students and they're both dating and they look like an MTV couple because they have the haircuts and the smartphones and the colors and the shoes. And you see mirror things happening in the media, like when you turn on to 90210 TV show, Beverly Hills, or Seinfeld or something. You have mirrors in media. So we can understand the audience by looking at the mirrors that the media are giving to us. And when it comes to a surface, there's something new. Images weren't exactly surface to touch. Like you look to painting, you're not supposed to touch the Van Gogh. You look to film and the projections are light. They're coming behind you. And surfaces change it. By the time that Microsoft creates a division for surface computing, this thing is no longer science fiction. We are interacting with images, and the image is the hardware, and the image is the software, and the image is the web. It's becoming so flat and so much just one thing. In the next time, like 10 years from now, it will be like strange to explain to someone that there was a time when computers were like walls. Then there was a thing that was internet that needed cables. Then there was a moment when computers were actually offline, which nobody notices. What is a computer good for offline now? You have to do everything by logging in, downloading, uploading. Then the blogs came up. And the blogs allowed the first transition to Web 2.0, where we could actually edit the contents. You don't have that on TV. But otherwise happens too. You look to the new shape of Facebook and the way people suggest brands and ads, it's the flow of TV. But in the 80s, there was one thing called music television that followed the old concept of flow that we have on books, on the radio, and on television, but choose for a polymorphic statement. If you see that MTV has never worked with just the same logo. They're polymorphic. They're like their crowds. They're changing stuff. There's an image making pulses thing. It's like a new version of the fireplace, a new version of TV, a new version of the disco ball. There's something on. You turn off the music and it keeps pumping. And younger students, younger crowds are addicted to that motion. It's like a technological metaphor for change. They got addicted to change. Then is the question of fiction. Everything now is fiction. Politics is fiction. Movies are fiction. TV shows are fiction. You see the Daily Show, and you see the Thunderbirds, or you see Max Headroom, the first non-real news presenter. That anchorman was a puppet. Then they made a 3D version, and it was a sort of having a virtual character presenting the news. Now you see PlayStation 4 video game presentations, and they're insane. You don't notice that there is one system making loading or processing. It's a massive environment. And what's going on right now is that we still have these 6 largest media companies in the world working on everything. So those small companies of the 80s, when one programmer was doing like Ron Hubert, and others were making the sound, the story, the graphics, the animation, the assembling, the code, everything. Nobody does that anymore. On the other side, these groups are getting shorter. There are less groups. They're becoming more stronger. And if you see, we see a lot of media for the younger crowds, online media, and mass media. I think that in the future we'll see no difference between online and offline, being mass media and non-mass media. It will blend. Lunenfeld suggests this, Unimedia. It's an awkward word because medium, it's singular. So mass media is plural. So when he says Unimedia, it's like on the same place we have all media. But we're speaking about both hardware and software, and this is a mess because usually you have one TV set and one hi-fi system. Things were things, real things, on the physical world. On the computer you have lots of things that they don't exist on the real world. So how are they becoming Unimedia? Because we are facing something new called technological continuity. Some thing that came up between the 80s and the 90s, I think, called middleware, is evolving. So now you can play old games, old software on the new media. They're on the iPad. We play Commodore Amiga things. You have old software like Deluxe Paint from 16-bit platforms. It works now. This is different because we used to have some sections that separated past from present and from what would be the future. We're facing more like things that are becoming an ever present. Everything now, it's now. So let's go to another concept about Manuel Castells. It's a Latin author, I believe he's from Spain. He's a sociologist. He speaks of the space of flows. What he says in 1991, William Gibson already said in 1994 and 82. And if you go back, we have those things in other authors, but Gibson is really the previewer of what was going to be cyberspace. We don't even say cyberspace no more. We just say digital, because cyberspace would be online. Nobody separates the online from the rest anymore. You know, Coke and Facebook are assembling parties for students where everything has a barcode, and you make a snapshot, and then the barcode is linked to something online, and your friends online know that you drank that Coke right there. So it's tangible reality, non-tangible reality. They're not separated anymore. One thing that can get us back to the question of money is that Jameson says that too, Manuel Castells says that too, another author, Benjamin Woolley, on a book on hyperreality, he says that the society of information is still a capitalistic society because the main concept is flows. And we are witnessing a transition to the web that everything will be step by step. Some things will be free, but in the end, nothing will be free. And they were saying in 1984 something like that. Cyberspace, the territory for a billion or billions of legitimate authorized users. Children who are being taught mathematical concepts in every nation across the world. An amazing complexity of data from every data banks in the human system. Then Howard Rheingold adds something new, and he says it's unthinkable complexity, but it's already calculable, because the net has an end. It's the amount of servers where things are recorded. So what do we do now? We have self-marketing. Everybody's saying what they're doing, and they're doing online, and they're doing fast. Like, we can create a reputation in a week. We can ruin a reputation in a second. You see that, for instance, in that presentation that happens on the TV show called House of Cards with Kevin Spacey. There's a journalist there. Someone makes a bad thing to the journalist, and the girl says, you know what he did to me? You forgot one thing. These days, and she has a smartphone on the hand, and she says, these days, when you're talking to one person, you're talking to the world. And she says, click, and the thing is uploaded to the social network, and their boss got fired the next hour. Advertising loud. We are doing that. We need to advertise even louder. It's not about how loud we say, it's about the public. Because the public doesn't exist, it's created. When Lost came up, it didn't have an audience. The Twilight Zone had the same issue. MTV had the same problem. Facebook sort of have something already going before with MSN Messenger and the chat rooms. But the new audiences, they almost don't need text. They text a lot, but they're into graphics. If you just show something about anime or manga, people will understand what you're talking about, because it's like global language. And what does this has to do with future? Simple thing. By the time I was doing my research for the PhD thesis, which is about anime, it's called The Anime Galaxy, Japanese Animation as New Media. I was trying to prove that Japanese animation is not a kind of content like documentary film, TV show, series, whatever. It was a media language that you could use to play other contents. So I stumbled on an author, thanks to Glam Yamstra, which is another one, and he mentioned this one called Fred Pollock, and he wrote a book called The Image of the Future. Amazing book. And he basically says something like this. Whatever you want to do in the future, it's like a name, a goal, a checkpoint where you want to go to. If you want that to happen, you're going to think backwards from the future to now and create all those stages. So by the time you get there, you're already doing it step by step, phase by phase, so you'll be there. So you're building the future. The future, it's not something far. You'll be actually doing it right now. You have to take into account that some things will happen, so you need to plan that. But the image of the future is something very interesting, because all cultures have their version of the future. That's why Blade Runner is one of the best motion pictures of the 20th century. What we're seeing now in Asia, everywhere happening, was already in Blade Runner. Anticipation narrative. This is a shot from the TV show The Walking Dead, which basically shows a lot of desert landscapes. And when we speak about anticipation narrative, is that everybody's trying to say what's the next big thing. We know what the next big crisis will be, sort of. You know that it's going to be another academic bubble, some problems in China related also with the financial system. We know that the technology that exists now is so sophisticated, you can figure out what it is, because there's really big things going on right now. And we don't even have to talk about the F-22s that the United States are making to cross the airspace on Korea right now. But technology has outrun our imagination. If you think it's James Bond, science fiction, it's not. It's real, already exists. Whatever you're thinking about, it's already existing. They interviewed Tom Hanks 1 year ago about smartphones. And Tom Hanks was saying something like, if they asked me when I was 20 years old that we'd have James Bond or Batman mobiles, like things on the car speaking to us and voice interfaces, and the car would drive itself, that would look crazy. But now it's completely present. And then you look at the news, and the new Audis in Germany are already driving, doing everything alone, like Toyota is planning to do this year. So if you go to the image of science fiction from the previous decades, we have to ask the question, where's my jetpack? You see, if you read a book about futurism called Where's My Future, if I'm not wrong, the author is Ulrich Schipke, German. In '72, he said something like this: in the future, there will only be Americas. And what he meant is that everything will be like the Manhattan skyline, or America will not be a country in a continent with a nation and all that things. America will be a system. So he was kind of thinking forward, because we're not having jetpacks right now, but everything that is around the globe has a signature of the United States, one way or another. You can't escape from that. But that's a good thing, because we don't have jetpacks, but we are being Blade Runners, step by step. That image of the future from the 60s that was shown on 82 by Ridley Scott, it's becoming real. Take a look at Shanghai, Manhattan, take a look of London downtown, which is changing. Take a look of the planet cities they have for Japan and also India, and you'll see that everything will look like urban. So the future is the future will be urban. So we'll have a problem with space, already have in Tokyo. So we go to a 90s author of cyberculture to understand the question. The future will have a problem with space, so that means that most buildings will not be places for habitation, there will be spaces for projection. Here is where media come into. We need to take media with us. We can't have a living room full of DVDs because we have to travel. And the future is about traveling. We gotta be traveling. Those who will stay put will perish. Future and even life itself is about motion. And here's the icon of speed. Dromology, in the words of Paul Virilio, the French thinker of speeds. The Blackbird Strategic Reconnaissance Airship SR-71. It was a technological aim about speed. Why? We wanted to do something faster than the rivals. And what does it have so special? Was it difficult to do? It was. It was very ahead of its time. It was. The prior aircraft was an U-2. It looked like a glider. This looks like a spaceship. That's one of the critics that the futurists say right now, is that you got to see NASA doing more things like this and the Air Force. But we didn't do that because we have to. We did the Blackbird because it was hard. That's what the younger audiences find strange about everything. They don't want to do art things. They want to do things that are possible. The whole idea of the academic world and science and even the media technology is that we got to do things that are not possible. We got to go ahead of ourselves. That's the way of being ahead of our time. Otherwise, we'll be doing journalism and writing about today's stories. It's nothing new about that. Then something called virtual reality appeared in the 90s. We already had that in literature, not the same thing. One thing that I found out on my research for my master thesis, it was about video games. It was called the subjective cyberspace, had to do with first-person shooters. What was interesting on those games is that, and we see that on the latest research in Germany by Crytek, who are doing very success with Crysis, the video game, is that people who play first-person shooters, and the army here knows that too, those people are much more well-oriented than people who can be gamers but don't play first-person shooters. The notion that we have about digital geography, spaces, building, and landmarks, and playing around that makes us know that we know our bearings. So if they try confuse you, you know where to go because you know the map. But they invented GPS, so we got addicted to something that tells us where we can go. If we got mistake, we can go around. So we stopped thinking about that. So we're losing our abilities because technology makes things for us. You also see that critique on WALL-E, the animation. Lunenfeld says that the computer is a dream device. The great thing about dreams is that they are working around our imagination. Imagination. the imaginarium, the thing that's in our head. It's basically an archive of images with no sense whatsoever. The links are established chemically by the body itself. The computer is the first medium where we can actually bet on our dreams. Like a person likes teddy bears. It's online. They start to make it on Photoshop, then they print, then they sell it, suddenly it's already in social media. Things are way faster now. In fact, they're too fast. But people have a very hard time in thinking about concepts. I have this problem with my students too. I tried to make the reverse engineering of concepts. I pick a media image and go back and say, this has to do with literature, advertising. This comes from a John Carpenter movie that is connected to touchscreen. This is a Microsoft icon. And if you assemble all this, there's a message, there's a sentence there. And they get puzzled because they're used to something that pops up on Facebook and says, "Charan, the world is blue." But they gotta be used to complete the puzzle by themselves. Two ways of teaching. I can teach you that the fish that I caught is good and you eat the fish. Or I can teach you how to get fish by yourselves. It will be smarter to teach you how to make that thing, fish for yourselves. A lot of people will fish, nobody starves. So the question is, if everybody thinks how to create concepts, thinking abstract and then going back to reality and to the tangible world, it will be easier and smarter. Then we have the F factor. I like you. Now, everything has to do with friends, fans, and followers. What about the outsiders and the outcasts? So if I don't have one of those hands saying something is about a like on my Facebook page, then I'm not cool. Where is it written that I have to be a cool icon? So the issue is why the F factor is so important. Because the F factor is about just being, not producing, just like a viewing experience. You're not a producer. Play, another thing that is occupying a lot of our time. Everything is about play. The malls, the movies, the cars, everything is about play. The only thing that is not about play is problems. So media already discovered this a long time ago. You read Marshall McLuhan in 1964, and he says something like this. The army had a magazine about army issues. And then they noticed that there was advertising and there was news. They removed the news. The colorful pages went away. They just got white and black paragraphs. Nobody wanted the magazine. People didn't even read the magazine. So they discovered that the audiences got addicted to the good news, which were advertising, versus the bad news that were the news itself. So if you have that in consideration, you'll see that we need to consume media that are fun. Reality cannot be presented in a very serious way. That would look like speaking about the Eurozone and the crisis of the financial system. It's boring. We need something to pop up. We need something like The Daily Show. That's where the infotainment comes up. We need a new formula of communicating old things. Users and technicians built the media. We see this in Tron, the war between users and programs. Where are humans in between? You go and see Metropolis by Fritz Lang, 1920s, early German film, expressionist. What do you see? The film is about the same war between the hand and the mind, or the emotional and the rational. So where does that leave us? I think that the war we are fighting is a war that needs teamworking, networking, and it's still a war about production. We gotta produce more than everybody else. Produce new things, better things. It's a war against not being productive. You see, like the millennials issue, like they don't have a job, they don't want to study, they just want to cruise on the limo, listening to hip hop or doing something else, or throwing away from a building, 200-story, and then opening the parachutes or whatever. It's something off the production line. Bold design. Again, we go back to the F-22. What's more important on this icon of the US military, it's not what it does, it's what it represents. It means that if one pilot is flying one of these things on a German airbase, one aircraft can take down 20 of the others. This plane is already there. They don't even see it. You can fire backwards. It's stealth. It can make an escort team with B-2s. Nobody knows that. It's already on the news. It's not science fiction. So we have a problem. Everything is taking the same models as cyberspace. We have the need to drive, flight, walk. It's always about us. We grab an iPad, a smartphone. It's always our hands. There's, in fact, some videos on YouTube that kind of show the video games of the future, and they look like video. They look exactly like video. So again, we go to cinema. The iconic model of media is still filmmaking. We need a post-computer version of the older media. This is a shot of those videos on YouTube, and it's like playing Grand Theft Auto, but it looks like video. It occurs in LA, but it's not 3D. The names that we can see on the top of those characters are people playing online, and they actually do stuff, and he gets into a bar, they have a fight, another one runs on a BMW, and there's a chase, there's shots. It's awkward. Try to explain this to a person with 70 years old, and you say, it's not a movie. The person doesn't believe. That's the problem we have with images. Everything is becoming the same image. On an interview to a newspaper, I believe, David Cronenberg, the director, was saying that the interface of the future will be like a car. Why? Because in a car, if you have been driving for at least 2 years, suddenly you don't even notice. You're talking with everybody on the car, and you're making the shifts and driving and looking at the mirrors. It's completely intuitive. Everything is following that because it's a subjective position. So we'll need subjective media. So it's already started with the tablets. It will be improving. Multimedia design. And here comes the question about the multimedia. And we have people here who work with digital media and animation and so on, and graphics. In 1998, the computer that was an icon for these things, it was, for me, it was elected the Commodore Amiga 500. We could do everything in there, music, graphics. It was like a futuristic Mac for the time when the Macs were not that good. So the Commodore was so good that it couldn't last for a long time. So after some time, there was no more Commodore. Then the PCs rise up. Then the consoles and the Sony PlayStation and everything came up. And some years later, now we don't have those battles. Everything is just a computer. It's just digital because there's a massive thing called the internet. But if you want to communicate, establish communication with the younger crowds, you cannot do it in a single medium form. People are used to multimedia things. Look at advertising, motion graphics, print design, print advertising. It's 3D. Most of the things are not photography. So if you want to work with computers, you'll see that you will end up working with reality. 3D printing is an example of that. This is an image that has to do with World War II. Like one of those things you saw on British planes, on the Spitfire, if I'm not wrong. And it looks like a target mark. It's like an icon for target audiences. And the lesson is that we got to be very straight with everything we do these days, and we got to solve each and every challenge. Sort of a message that we found on the President Barack Obama. He says that we got to do everything one after another, not leaving anything behind. Sort of a military message in between. You don't survive if you leave people behind. In fact, nobody does. You learned that in Europe. The people from the north, the cold part of Europe, they only survived because there were teams. That thing doesn't happen on the southern part of Europe that well. We are everything we choose and also things not chosen. This means that the younger crowds, they can choose a lot of things. They have a lot of trouble in saying no to things. Like, everything is acceptable. Like, everything is, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. If you go to a living room or a bedroom of a teenager in the 80s, you see a Coke can you see baseball cards, you see a stereo, you see tape recorders. Now it looks like NASA. There's boxes full with cables, and there's iPods, several versions of this and that. It's a computer show. And we don't notice, but we're becoming technicians. Everything is so technical. There was a time when digital culture was for a group. Now it's everywhere. It's not for a part. Everything is on it. Some year and a half ago, more or less, author Jeff Howe presented something about crowdsourcing. It's a boom now. Everything is about kickstarting, helping people, providing money to do new ideas, pushing them up. He says that the future is about polyalogue, not just dialogue. That's good. But he says something good on that book. He says that basically the future is not on the professionals, it's on the amateurs. The Latin origin for amateur is to amare, which means to love. So the people will survive this medium, the massive recording medium, which is the web, is those who like the contents, not the ones that just consume them. We need to like the things we do. So the future is about emotional branding. You need to love it emotionally. Things are not going to be useful just because they work, right? So he says another thing. He says that the future is about loving everything you do and not being embarrassed by everything you did. Because now we have a big problem with the internet. I can be speaking right now. If it's online, I cannot unrecord it. You can check what I'm saying, even the references. I cannot lie. I cannot go back. It stays recorded forever. Even if you quit Facebook, but you said something to one person, you want to delete the person, Facebook will record that. And even if you have a connection by a single caption with that person, it's undeletable. Even if you quit Facebook, it stays there always. So we have a problem with this medium. It wasn't designed for oblivion. It wasn't designed to go back. William Gibson said something like that. The internet wasn't made to be undone. We cannot undo the internet. It was thought to be something like that. You go to Alvin Toffler's Future Shock in the 1979 or 1982, and he said that we would be facing the problem that we are speaking about right now. We have overchoice problem. There's too many things to consume and see and read. We can't handle it. Even emails. We're writing less emails, they're shorter, they're becoming tweets, and after tweets, what's going to come up? Acronyms? We say VHS, DVD, MP3 to everybody. We don't have time to make full words. There's no time to write. US Postal Service, having less mail service, making a connection with Amazon for the big deliveries. We're having a problem with writing. You ask for students, you see the tests that they write, and their handwriting looks like Egyptian, because I don't understand. It takes me a lot of time to read one test from one student. But if you put a laptop on it, everybody will write Gutenbergian way. It's good. Let's speak about augmented reality. So we have been shifting from the screen to the real world. And we have this Ingress Project from Google, and we see it about the ticket, the idea that whatever we're playing, it has to do with reality. Clouds. The clouds are awesome. You can store lots of data in the clouds, but if there ever comes a rainy day, we have a problem because we have everything online. And every now you see people giving you lots of storage space, but why do we need so much space online to storage things? Do we need so much things? I did a document to store all my passwords. It's a lot of passwords, emails and websites for shopping. It's massive. We don't realize because we're not people anymore. We are codes. It's like speaking about Tron. There's good code, bad code. Even psychologists are saying that about people. Like criminals, they're bad code. Good-looking people, they're good code. It's strange. We're using computer metaphors. And we also have this problem about attention. Younger crowds, especially the younger, but not just those, because I find 40-year-old people with the same problem. They have a hard time in focusing on things. Like everything that takes more than 20 minutes, that's a very big motion picture. If you speak about a video clip, that's also long. If you pick a video clip and you make it in slow motion, it has a huge amount of shots, but they're just fast. You don't notice, but you're seeing them, even though you don't notice them. So we have a problem in having attention. Paying attention is hard. And this community that's online, enjoys multimedia things and cannot stop, is too speedy and it's too emotional. That's where Facebook appears with the like analytics. Why it's so important to like things? Aren't they supposed just to work? You look at a chair. Chair was designed to sit on, it doesn't have to be beautiful, but now we like a beautiful chair. A screen was supposed just to see things, but now it's got to be a beautiful screen. So everything suddenly is an object of design. Let's think on the stars and stripes. This is an icon of inspiration. We need more icons that work as inspiration. And the issue is that this generation of people insists in documenting everything online. Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman says that right now people are making a confessional society. There was this time when younger girls were writing on their diary book that they loved someone in the school, that the boy was too cute. Then the mother went to see the book and learned that everything that the children was doing in the school was either good or naughty. But now they do it online for free. So the whole world knows what's happening on each person's life, and they do it voluntarily. Suddenly, becoming public, it's like obligatory. It's like, it's natural. Being private is weird. Why is that guy in that corner? Why doesn't he speak? Why doesn't he want to be famous? You don't want to be a trademark? There's got to be something wrong about you. You don't want to be a brand? So here is the issue. There is something different because of the screens. The new work of Simon Bond, which is called Meet the Screens, says this: screens surround us. They're on our desks, in our laps, in our pockets. So the picture is very straight, like each person, each part of the family, which also has to do with each part of the house, the living room, or the kitchen, or the office, or the rooms of the children. Anything has to do with the kind of a screen. But they discovered that for each screen, there's a profile of people. For instance, when you speak about tablets, they say that it has to do with wizards. Like, tablets are for people who like to do a lot of things and solve things fastly, on the go, but at the same time is kind of arrogant chic. When you speak about the smartphone, it's about the lover, because we wake up with the smartphone. We go to bed with the smartphone. It's when our loved ones call to us, we call to them. So the smartphone, it's about a more closer relationship. But tablets are getting much more attention these days. And malls. What about malls? Malls are disappearing. Why? We take too much time walking on them. They're huge. So malls are coming to us. How? On the iPhone, like in Korea. It's a shot. You shot, you shot, you shot, you shot, you order. You get at home, things are there. Faster. We need time. We have too much space. We go to that 90s book of John Baudrillard. He spoke of desert of the real. What's happening right now is half desert of the real, but it's also the opposite. It's like things are also getting out of the screens into the real. The very notion of real is complicated. You see Avatar on the movies with 3D glasses. It's real. I see things moving around here, like I would see a fly or smoke or something. It's here. I move in the seat and things move along with me because of the perspective. Holograms are the same thing. So what exactly is real? Well, real is that after the 9/11, the world is not the same on every issue. I remind this video clip by Moby, which is a very good one, and he has this little thing on the refrain when it says, "Lift me up higher and higher." Same thing about the Blackbird and everything which is a major icon. We need to do something better, faster, stronger, better, not just bigger, better. And the images are still sending messages. So it's like when you are a child, you look at things and you see cartoons and you see colors and shapes, but they are not just that. See the anime the Japanese were playing in the 70s? Like Candy Candy and Tom Sawyer, they were not just cartoons, and they were very good. And this new audience is very savvy. My first computer, I bought it when I was 10 or 12 years old. By 16, I already knew what was multimedia. I only bought a laptop when I was 21, internet 22. Then I was stopped for 7 years because of personal issues. And from my 27-year-old time to now, when I'm 35, everything got 300 times faster, better, easier. It's a new world. You don't need so much complicated things. Everything is easier for us, even to configure a printer. It's not like in old school. You get on the iPhone, you say print, and it prints. But the problem is that the younger crowds, while they are 2 or 3 years old, they're already touching tablets. They're already playing. But they're not doing one thing at a time. They are multitaskers. You see what Sherry Turkle says on her last book, which is also about robotics and the online community. And she says that everything we are doing is in favor of a very artificial society. She says we are much more closer to machines than we are to people. And that's kind of odd, because we are people, we are not machines. But if we follow Donna Haraway's ideas of cyborgs, we are cyborgs since we invented the wheel and grabbed the bone, like in that movie of Kubrick in 2001. So what's the choice? We were always cyborgs, or we just realize now that we are much more technology species driven like? Everything needs purpose. It's not just a message that we see on the Matrix being declared by Agent Smith to the resistance, but it has to do also with programs. The better societies are organized, the better their purpose, the better is the way for achieving the goals. And people need goals. No? You see those statistics where they say how successful people are, and you see that married people are less prone to go as marginal and outsiders and criminals and so on in comparison to others. Some of those statistics are completely manipulated, but one future that is expecting us is not the future of being single. Like, we cannot do everything we have to do in the future by being alone. We need teams. We need more enterprises. We need more people playing together, and we need to think on common goals. You read science fiction by Isaac Asimov, and the feature that it has most underlined is that there is a collective future for mankind. When do you realize that this mankind has a collective future? What is a collective future? Based on what? That is the thing about media. Media are shaping audiences and creating that. These are my latest books, The Anime Galaxy, where I speak about anime as a language, and video games too. The Complete Man is a novel about a secret society that wants to change the world, investing on dialogue, changing one person at a time to improve the world. PostWeb is about Web3, and these are my last three books. And I hope you have enjoyed, and it wasn't boring at all. Thank you very much.